cover themselves. Many don a full-face veil. Zsuzsanna's 8-year-old daughter, he says, wears a headscarf.
Also es gibt kein Verhandeln in der Religion. Vor allem so Basissachen, Grundsachen, da gibt's keine.
There's no room for interpretation in religion, not even a millimeter, especially when it comes to basics, whatever the cost. But sometimes Muslims shouldn't be so inflexible. For example, when a woman meets with a German woman, if you're fully covered, why don't you try to alleviate her fear and show her your face?
As the movement spread across Germany, it coincided with the rise of the so-called Islamic State. And as hundreds of Germans left for Syria and Iraq, following the proclamation of the group's self-styled caliphate in 2014, German authorities began to monitor the movement more closely. In November 2016, former Interior Minister Thomas de Maizière finally acted.
Als Bundesinnenminister habe ich heute die Vereinigung mit dem Namen Die wahre Religion.
Today, I banned the organization called The True Religion. The organization called The True Religion operates all across Germany, uniting Islamists under the pretext of advertising for Islam and the pretext of alleged harmless distribution of translations of the Quran. Hatred and anti-constitutional ideologies are spread in pedestrian precincts and teenagers are radicalized through conspiracy theories. In its videos, meetings and distribution campaigns, this organization is instigating the fight against our constitutional order and glorifying the violent jihad of terrorist groups. So it's glorifying murder and terror.
What is more, according to German authorities, the True Religion provided a recruiting point for violent Islamists who travelled to Syria and Iraq to join IS and other militant groups. Thousands of copies of the Quran were confiscated. It was a turning point for the organization. Many leading figures withdrew from the spotlight. Others were killed in Syria and Iraq. Leader Abu Naji never returned from a foreign trip. The movement scattered, but didn't disappear. Abu Dujana agrees that since the ban, he is no longer able to preach in mosques, that he is often turned away by owners of restaurants or venues. Instead, he preaches in private homes and posts on his Facebook page, which has almost 13,000 followers. A recent post called on his followers to spend at least 20 minutes a day reading the Quran. Another one praised women who wear hijab. Dujana is fully aware that he is being monitored and, in the course of the interview on and off the record, he chooses his words carefully, never crossing the line of what is permissible to say and express in Germany. Inciting violence or hatred can lead to heavy fines and prison terms here. And so Dujana is adamant that the True Religion never endorsed violence or violent groups.
We have nothing to hide. You can't blame us for what some people who may have been part of our movement may have done. Look, maybe someone went to Syria, maybe someone committed a rape, maybe someone robbed the bank. You can't blame everyone for that. I think we need to be clear. Where's the problem in going to Syria? As long as you don't commit any injustice, where is the problem? Many people went to Syria to help, but when you say that, then you're persecuted.
He admits that he knows some people who did more than collect medicines and clothes and went to Syria to join IS and other extremist groups. When pushed, he calls IS unjust, claiming he himself has received death threats from IS members. In fact, he says, he has dissuaded many teenagers from leaving Germany and joining IS. But he's convinced that's not why authorities cracked down on this group, but rather because they knew it was the only, in his words, true religion.
Why this fear of Islam? I think it's because politicians and leaders know that it's the truth. If you let us be, more people would convert.
Today, he says, smiling, he still receives numerous requests from brothers and sisters in search of religious advice, ranging from marital problems to concerns about how to educate educate their children.
If you were working for a tabloid, you'd write, "Parallel society, Muslims follow their own laws, don't accept German laws." But it's totally normal. It's like a person of trust. People come to me for advice on the basis of religion. After all, that's how people know me.
These meetings worry the security agencies. Off the record, officials admit that they are unable to keep close tabs on what is being said and preached, and that they're concerned about these potentially dangerous blind spots. Later, the interview concluded. Abu Dujana, the preacher whom authorities say helped radicalize hundreds of young men and women, some of whom went on to join IS, finishes his cheese sandwich, pulls his hood over his head, and vanishes into the crowd of commuters milling around the tram stop outside. For DW, I'm Naomi Conrad in Bonn, Germany.
Right.
French President Emmanuel Macron has outlined his vision for fundamental reform of the European Union. His call for a so-called European Renaissance was published on Tuesday in leading newspapers in each EU member state. Helen Sini has the details and this roundup of European news.
President Macron's editorial comes amid unease about growing support for the bloc's far-right nationalist parties, and that support could have a major impact on the upcoming elections to the European Parliament. Macron's recommendations include stricter controls on the EU's outer borders and a common asylum policy for migrants. He also called for the creation of a new agency to protect European democracies and their electoral processes against cyber attacks and fake news. It would enforce bans on foreign financing of political parties and draw up rules that ban hateful and violent speeches from the internet. Macron has warned that the May elections will be decisive for Europe's future. A French Roman Catholic cardinal has been handed a 6-month suspended sentence for covering up the abuse of minors. Cardinal Philippe Barbarin, the Archbishop of Lyon, is the highest-ranking Catholic official in France to be caught up in the Church's child sex abuse scandal. He was found guilty of not reporting allegations of assaults by a priest during the 1980s and 90s. Cardinal Barbarin denied the charges, and his lawyers say he will appeal against the verdict. Violence against women in Eastern and Southeastern Europe is rife. That's according to a new report published by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The OSCE asked around 15,000 women in the region about violence and abuse from the age of 15. The study said the results were grim. Some 70% of women said they'd experienced some form of violence, with a third saying this had occurred within the last 12 months. Psychological violence was the most prevalent. The report also pointed out that many women did not report experiences because they distrusted the authorities or felt they didn't know what to do. A leading candidate for the upcoming European elections says he will end Turkey's EU accession talks if he's elected. Manfred Weber, who's with the European People's Party, is running for the post of European Commission President. Turkey formally launched accession talks back in 2004, and EU membership remains one of its strategic goals. But the talks have been stalled for years due to a range of issues dividing Ankara and Brussels. Weber said while everyone wanted good relations with Turkey, it could not become a member of the bloc. This weekend, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is formally dedicating its new temple in Rome. It's the largest Mormon center in Europe, occupying a 15-acre site in the city. Since it opened in January, more than 50,000 Italians have visited the temple, taking advantage of an extended open house. After its dedication, only church members will be allowed to enter it. There are 12 other Mormon temples in Europe, catering to about 500,000 church members. Another temple is expected to open later this year in the Portuguese capital, Lisbon. And finally, the European Union has taken another step towards ending daylight savings. A new proposal could see the twice-yearly clock change being scrapped as of 2021, at least in some countries. All 28 member states will eventually need to rubber stamp the decision, and they're by no means united over the issue. For example, some countries, including the UK, Greece and Portugal, want to stick to the old rules and continue to switch between summer and winter time throughout the year. To be on the safe side, the European Parliament is calling for a coordination network of member states. But it remains to be seen whether chaos will actually break out when the EU no longer sets the clock.
Helen Sini with that roundup of European news.
Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, oh, Superwoman in the building, we on fire, Wonder Woman.
And that is it for this edition of Spotlight on Europe. I hope you have enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or feedback, you can write to us an email via feedback.africa@dw.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Our address is DW Africa. We'll be back next week. From Mizi Paranyambura and all of us here at Deutsche Welle, have a splendid week ahead. We'll leave you with these bits from Yemi Alade as we continue to celebrate women worldwide.
Run the streets, getting moolah. Oh yeah, put 2 fingers in the air. Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. Oh, Superwoman in the building, we on fire, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman. Oh, Superwoman in the building, we on fire. Raise your hands if you are top shooter, and you know say you are girl on fire. Hey, keep your mind if you are top shooter, and you don't say you like a girl on fire.
DW, the 77%.
Hello and welcome to the 77% show, home of Africa's youth. I am Crispin Mwakideo, and this week our show is coming to you from Ghana's capital, Accra. Thanks for tuning in, because in this edition we shall be tackling one word that has been creating the buzz around Africa, and that is entrepreneurship.
We need our banks to also open up the space and have a conversation about entrepreneurship, because we're doing a lot of great things. We're making a great impact in society, but we don't have support from a lot of the industries that could make a change.
Join the debate on our Facebook page at DW Africa, and let's debate about entrepreneurship and whether this is the solution to Africa's unemployment problem. In almost all corners of Accra, construction cranes are busy raising floors and floors of high-rise buildings and apartments. It is obvious that this is a city under economic transformation. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Ghana's economy will grow by 7.6% in 2019, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Behind this growth is an army of entrepreneurs that are taking the unemployment bull by its horns. And it's not just in Accra, but all over Ghana. Like in the central region, where Maxwell Sook visited one startup which nurtures catfish for profit and filed this report.
Pond manager Moro Shaibu Sepa is feeding his 5.5-month catfish. He has a broad smile on his face. He is already anticipating a good harvest from these fish, who are growing well.
I have about 4 ponds here. Some are over there. Well, after this, we are going to restock it again.
After just 6 months, these fish are ready to eat. When Moro Shaibu harvests the ponds, it is enough to sustain his household for half a year, he says.
It's about 6 months. They are 5.5 kilograms now. Yeah.
Osman Amadou is 33 years old. Osman is a teacher and on the side works at rearing fish too, although he is still hoping that one day he might find work in the oil and gas sector.
It was my expectation is to be employed there, but it was not solely because of the amount that you get there. But you know, over here in Ghana, when you are a teacher, you are not even much recognized. Even the placement give me much recognition than you. Yes.
Moro Shaibu and Osman Amadou belong to the Alhamdulillah Fish Farmers Association at Kanguni, a community in the Elembele district of the Western region. Now he struck gold with catfish. He has stopped dreaming about working in the oil and gas sector.
At the moment, I don't have any thought of going to work at that place because of this business that I've just put myself into. And recently, I went to Akosombo to be trained as a hatchery operator to be able to hatch the fish. So I'm established the center and start hatching fingerlings over here. So within a few years or time, definitely you come and see me as a fatty man, not as slim as you see me.
Aquaculture was selected for the Western region because many people already had expertise in the fishing industry and there is plentiful water here. The program is supported by UK Aid and Danida, or Danish Aid. Barbara Joliwahe is the livelihood support manager for the Western Region Coastal Foundation.
With the oil find, every youth wanted to be employed in an oil and gas company. And they realized that they did not have the skills nor the capacities to do that. So what can they do? And that is where WRCF comes in. And that's what our project is all about. We are giving people alternatives.
The catfish arrived at just the right time. Marine fishing is declining by 12% annually in the area, according to the
some flowers be there for the seaside.
Femi Afeba, a fishmonger, agrees.
It has really spoiled the river, my brother. It has spoiled it. First, I could sell up to 200 cedis daily. Now, how do I get that? If we knew this is how things would turn up, would have prevented them from exploring. We are really hurt.
At the moment, most of the catfish is being consumed locally. But as the industry picks up, the hope is that Ghana can start exporting its catfish too. Back at Kanguni, Moro Shaibu still has a big smile on his face. It beats mining any day, he thinks.
It's better than the galamsey. It doesn't involve any risk. I'm here, I will come to the pond morning by 8 o'clock. I'll come and feed them. In the afternoon, 1 o'clock, I'll come and feed them. 5 o'clock in the evening, I'll come and feed them. Then I'm going home.
Despite his joy, the rest of the population are slow to follow Moro Shaibu's lead. The majority are still hoping that they can land a white-collar job in the oil and gas sector. But if the catfish keep eating at the rate they are, they might be about to change the perception of aquaculture very soon. For DW, this is Maxwell Sook in the Western region of Ghana.
When we return, I'll be talking to two entrepreneurs who will share their challenges and experiences. Keep those comments also coming in on our Facebook page, DW Africa. By now, you probably know that 77% of Africans are under the age of 35. So if Africa has an estimated 1 billion people, that means nearly 800 million of them are young people. So the question then is, where will the jobs come from? Obviously, I don't have the answer to that, but part of it maybe lies in entrepreneurship. So I caught up with two young entrepreneurs at the Impact Hub in Accra, and here they are.
My name is Genevieve, and I work with Chalkboard Education. What we do is we make education available to students, NGOs, and companies, and even without the internet.
My name is Caleb. I'm with Dex Technology. We are the producers of the science set. I think if you are into education, you should have heard about math sets now.
Great. What you guys have described sounds really, really good. But let me just open this up for discussion now. I guess you always come here at Impact Hub to network, to share experiences, to discuss stuff. But outside the Impact Hub, how do people perceive you as an entrepreneur or somebody who some kind of change in the community?
I'll say that the perception has changed over the years. Initially, about maybe 5 years ago, it was something frowned upon because people didn't believe that you went to school and just decided to now start a business and basically go through the hardship that comes with starting a business. But currently, people actually look up to it. They're very inspired by it. So it's something that drives motivation across the youth that I get into interactions with.
Yes, it's catching up, just as she mentioned. And so you have a sense that students are now getting to understand there's a high job insecurity out there. And so your certificates will not take you anywhere if you don't actually start doing something for yourselves. So I think it is something which is catching up gradually. And I think it's catching up more with the younger generation, because they've seen that, hey, a lot of people complete school, and funny enough, we have unemployed associations all over, and it's a disgrace actually. And so you wouldn't want to find yourself in that bracket. So you start thinking, and then it's working. It's working.
Do you have the impression that you have the space that you get? I'm not talking about the resources, but just the space that you need to carry out the activities that you want to practice your entrepreneurial skills?
Speaking from our perspective, the market was ripe for what we do. We had a lot of institutions looking for a way to digitize the existing content and basically roll it out to the end users. But this was very expensive, coming from solutions that are outside Ghana. So there was no solution in Ghana providing that. And we came in and took up the market, and it's been very successful so far. They invite us to their offices, they invite us to different spaces where they're interacting. So it's been a good experience for us so far.
Okay, so as an entrepreneur, whatever inspired you to do whatever you're doing is really, really important from the start. So I believe that if there's a vision, there's a provision. No matter how long it takes, if you get the marketing niche right, you'll be able to go out there. For instance, the science set, as you see it, is currently a unique product that is solving a lot of problems in our schools. Mm-hmm. And so you keep on getting calls, meetings, engagements. Though we have a challenge with educational culture where we are limited with the theory aspect of just education. So we see a very big space, but yet it requires some tenacity and some strength for you to be able to break that genes of, hey, we are sticking to a traditional way of doing things theoretically. Where from you, all of a sudden you want to change things. You get it. But that is the problem. And so long as we see the problem, we see it as an opportunity. And that is how come we started what we started. And so of course, it's not going to go down so easily with us. So we are ready. We are facing the challenges. But that is the reason we are here. So we are fighting and we are gaining results, trust me. And the smiles we see and the results we see when students get in contact with our science sets, that's just what keeps us going. So we feel that any time we waste, we are denying another child opportunity to have the kind of education we never had. So it's just the inspiration and the motivation.
When it comes now to funding, I think this is one of the key issues for most entrepreneurs.
Effect when I invest into this part. But if you have government saying things in a different way and then entrepreneurs doing things in a different way, you're never going to get the funding you need in this country. So what we have always advocated for is that there should be a cultural change in the way we do things in our country. And this, of course, needs a high-profile government understanding. So whatever we do as a company, as Dex Technology, we try as much as possible to keep government in the loop. But see, when we went to this school in the village in the eastern region, after introducing our sciences to the student has been able to create her own light, now inviting people over to her space to come and study with her. That wouldn't be the situation if we had not gone there. So we believe that practical education that we've been singing about, this is the time to go in there, because we have brought a solution which is smart. You don't have to build a whole building. It's like we've shrunk a whole lab into a box, and we can present it to you as a gift. So let's give every child that opportunity. So if government catches wind of this and says that, hey, from now onwards, your exams should be measured by practical work, then everybody will want to lean towards that direction.
With regard to funding, it's been tough. When we started out, of course, our biggest investors, or I like to think of them as grants now, were our families. So we would get the money from the families, and basically it was like little money coming in from the family if they believed in what you're doing, and just to keep you motivated and keep you going. But I think a lot of the society is risk averse. Most people would rather go with a solution they're aware of, something they've tried and tested and has a lot of reviews, which is something we kept hearing from different clients when we met them the first time. They'd always ask, so who else has tried your solution? And they're like, why has no one else in Ghana tried it when we had clients outside Ghana? So everybody needs someone else to go first. So we've had a lot of risk aversion. That's our experience. We don't have banks that are also willing to bet on entrepreneurs. We have a lot of them asking for you to have a title deed or to have, a lot of security to which you would not need a loan for if you had that kind of money. So we need our banks to also open up the space and have a conversation about entrepreneurship, because we're doing a lot of great things. We're making a great impact in society, but we don't have support from a lot of the industries that could make a change.
Caleb, you mentioned something quite interesting about a change of behavior, and I think one of it is just how people perceive men and women, whether be they in entrepreneurship or workplace or in school or whatever. How much of an issue is that in terms of, you as a woman now, let's say going to meet out investors or potential people who you want now to implement your startup with? How hard is it compared to Caleb?
Depending on, I'd say, the age group and the cultural background. So we have a lot of people who are excited to see a woman in the forefront, actually leading the change and taking ownership of the space. And we have other people, when you walk into the room, they'd be like, but why is a woman now coming and giving a whole pitch deck presentation and, trying to get money out of me? For them, it doesn't compute. So it's still not, we're still not there. We still have a different reaction, I believe, from guys, because sometimes I'd walk into the team with one of my colleagues who's probably not in the pitching position, but everyone would expect to hear the pitch from him and not from me. So when I start pitching, people are a bit confused, they're thrown off, and they wonder what's going on. But yeah, there's some work to be done.
I don't really like playing those cards. Okay, so I'm not a female, I mean, obviously, so it will be so difficult for me to mention, and I've not, really observed that, because I've seen a lot of women entrepreneurs who are really making it out there, and so I wouldn't know. They have never spoken to me about this kind of challenge that when I go out there, investors don't want to see me. But when you have a lady on your team, it really works. That's what I've seen. We have a lady on our team, and whenever we go somewhere, doors that we couldn't open, she gets them open for us. And if anybody you go to who doesn't see the worth of a lady pitching for something, then I think the person is not the right person to be talking to.
That's all we had for this week's 77% show. You can listen to the program again and previous editions by visiting dw.com/Africa. For more content on the 77%, check out our new YouTube videos on DW Africa 77%. I'm Crispin Mwakideu. Until next time, goodbye from Accra.
I can see the world breaking down at my feet. I can feel my heart racing down my beat. I hear Onile say hi near me. The green earth's blue and light near me. My sight overcome my light. They hear Onile and Gaia say rise up, Africa. Beats run my soul and I'm feeling so high. My eyes open. Onile say welcome, Africa. Africa.
DW Learning by Ear. Listen up.
What a disaster. It looks like the mountain of waste has collapsed onto people's houses. Where's Matilda? I'll try and call her again.
You need to be careful.
The person you've called is not available. Please try again. I still can't get through to Matilda. I'm starting to worry. I'll do some live blogging while I wait.
We've been saying for a long time that Zukoso was a danger to the people living nearby. Nobody wanted to listen to us. Now I've got all of the town's waste right on my doorstep. And what a stink. It's unbearable.
Excuse me, ma'am. I just heard what you were saying. I'm an environmental blogger and I'm about to do some live blogging. Would you mind answering some questions?
No, not at all.
Hang on. I'll just turn on the video. Okay. Could you introduce yourself and tell us what you saw?
My name is Lucy Zubida. I live in Sanoso near Zukoso. The landslide happened early this morning when it was still raining. I was cooking and then there was this incredibly loud noise. Look, you can see the whole of the right side of the dump collapsed. My husband saw everything. He can tell you more. John, please come here.
Yes, Lucy. I'm here. What is it?
Tell this lady about the accident. It's for her blog on the environment.
Hello, sir. So you saw what happened here this morning?
Oh, yes. I was talking to a friend at a coffee stand nearby when the first landslide came down.
Well, there's several.
Well, two. As soon as the first one happened, the squatters who were sorting through garbage on the dump started running. And then there was a second landslide that rolled over them like a wave.
Are you saying there are people trapped under the waste?
Some of them managed to get out, but yes, there are definitely others in there. It looked horrible.
Oh, no. What about Matilda and her friends?
Rosa is praying Matilda and her friends Randolph, Rama, and Timothy weren't at the dump at the time. And how are the local authorities reacting to this catastrophe? We joined the mayor and two of his closest advisors on their way to the accident site.
This is a good speech, Mr. Mayor. The population will be reassured if we tell them we are soon going to open an official landfill site in Likalongo.
Are you sure? Paula, you're a town councillor. Do you agree with Godfrey?
Hold on, Mr. Mayor. Godfrey, give me the speech again so I can look at it one last time. The whole council is devastated by the landslide that has just occurred. Oh, that's good. We were just as surprised as you were by this event. Perfect. Good wording, Godfrey.
Thank you, Paula. We mustn't get the wording wrong because we are in a hurry.
But Godfrey, this is a serious accident. We have to respond in the right way, not just make good speeches.
You're right, Mr. Mayor. But listen to how it goes on. We have no choice but to react quickly. Good transition. And in view of the situation, we would like to announce that we will soon be opening an official landfill site. We envisage that it will come into operation within a few months. That's perfect.
All right. I read the speech as it is. I had no idea that a waste problem could have such serious consequences.
This accident has happened at a bad time for us. Now our opponents will have something to use to discredit us.
But we've got room for maneuver with this speech.
Why hasn't the superintendent called us to give us a report like she was supposed to? We need to know exactly what happened before we arrive in Sanoso.
Mr. Mayor, what's most urgent is to decide where the new landfill will be located. Otherwise, the population will think that this is just a tactic.
I'm going to think about it. I'm not just sleeping on the job as Deputy Mayor for Public Health, you know, Paula.
I'm counting on you to find a solution, Godfrey. You're personally in charge of the file.
This must be the superintendent calling.
Hello, Superintendent. We've almost arrived. What's the situation on the ground?
Mr. Mayor, it's a disaster. The torrential rain of the past few days certainly contributed. People have died, Mr. Mayor.
What?
At the moment, it seems there are 10 people dead and 3 who are seriously injured. But the search is continuing, and the death toll could rise. They were mostly squatters who were sorting through the waste looking for valuables. I've already reported to the Ministry of Security and the Interior.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Unbelievable. Godfrey, Paula, the situation is complicated. There are casualties, and the Ministry of the Interior has been informed. This is serious.
Meanwhile, Rosa is still on the ground. She's still looking in the crowd for Matilda and her friends from the Sanoso Eco Agency while continuing her live blogging.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Zika, for these details. It's interesting to know that 17 years ago, this dump was actually just a hole on a building site.
Yes, and then it gradually became a dumping site that was used by the whole town. There are even trucks that dump industrial waste here. The people of Sanoso have not produced all this waste by themselves.
If what you're saying about industrial waste is true, that's really dangerous for the local inhabitants. There could be severe chemical contamination. It could have an impact on children, pregnant women, everyone. It can stunt children's growth and increase the risk of cancer.
Really?
Yes. Let's not forget that there's also waste lying around in our streets and in the lagoon. We have to change our habits regarding waste disposal, as the Sanoso Eco Agency has been encouraging us to do.
Ah, yes, I know that agency.
Oh, so you've already signed up for their scheme? My battery's running out. I'll have to stop the live blogging now. Thank you all for your responses. I won't pretend that I'm not worried about my friends from the Sanoso Eco Agency, even more so now that the police have found bodies in the rubble. It's right here at the edge of Zukoso that they sort the waste after collecting it from their customers. Damn! My phone battery is completely dead now.
Rosa!
Matilda! Are you okay? Oh, I was just talking about you on the...
Deutsche Welle from Bonn, Germany. Just one of the many global voices you can hear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the World Radio Network. On the web at WRN.org.
This is Global Community Radio Channel 1, News and More. Portions rebroadcast on KFZR-LP, Fraser Park, KIEZ-LP, Monroe, KLQS-LP, Agua Dulce, KPDO, Pescadero, WLRI-LP, Gap, WMUU-LP, Madison, WRAQ-LP, Angelica, WXDR-LP, New Orleans, and WXIR-LP, Rochester.
This is the World Radio Network. Next, NHK World Radio Japan from Tokyo.
This is Radio Japan of the NHK World Japan Network, broadcasting from Tokyo. We are now starting our broadcast in English. For details of our schedule, please visit our website at nhk.jp/rj. We are always pleased to receive your comments and suggestions through our website or via mail. Our address is English Service, NHK World Japan, Tokyo 150-8001, Japan. Please stay tuned.
More than 3,700 people have died in the years that followed due to health problems or other complications related to the disaster. A government-sponsored memorial ceremony was held in Tokyo. The imperial family was represented by Prince Akishino. He expressed his concern for people who haven't been able to return home. Authorities say there are still more than 50,000 evacuees. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe vowed to strengthen disaster prevention measures. He said, "We will continue to review disaster prevention and mitigation measures that will save the lives of people."
Japan's meteorological agency says seismic activity is continuing in wide areas of northeastern Japan, 8 years after a magnitude 9 earthquake hit the region. The agency says tremors are occurring in a region along the coast from Tohoku to Kanto. It says the areas have experienced 477 tremors with an intensity of 1 or higher on the Japanese scale of 0 to 7 for the past year through Sunday evening. It says the number has dropped from 8,112 recorded in the year following the earthquake that struck on March 11, 2011. However, the agency says that in the aftershock region, tremors have occurred more frequently than before the disaster. The agency says the number of quakes in the region is still about 50% higher than before the 2011 megaquake. It warns of a high probability of an earthquake of magnitude 7 or higher and a subsequent tsunami occurring there. Last month, a government research panel also announced that the maximum probability of a magnitude 7 earthquake occurring along the Japan Trench in the next 30 years is higher than 90%. The Japan Trench lies in the Pacific Ocean.
He says once the water is sufficiently diluted, it can be disposed of by releasing it into the ocean. The final plan has yet to be decided amid persistent protests from the fishing industry.
The head of Japan's nuclear watchdog has urged his staff to speak up if they think something is wrong that puts nuclear safety at risk. Nuclear Regulation Authority Chairman Toyoshi Fuketa addressed about 330 employees on Monday, the 8th anniversary of the 2011 accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Fuketa told them they should not assume their colleagues and superiors are doing their jobs well. He said it would be tantamount to professional negligence if they suspect something is wrong but fail to flag it. He said NRA employees are deluding themselves if they think Japan will not be hit with another accident as serious as the one in Fukushima just because many countermeasures have been taken. Fuketa said they need to realize that they cannot necessarily comprehend how such accidents develop.
People in New York gathered at a church on Sunday to remember the victims of the March 11th disaster. About 400 people took part in the event in Manhattan that was organized by Japanese residents of the city. After a minute of silence, a video message was played, thanking people for their support and showing the ongoing reconstruction of the affected areas. Nanami Miura was an elementary school student when she lost her home in Miyagi Prefecture 8 years ago. She told the participants that she was evacuated to another district, but she was told by her classmates to go back to her hometown. They also criticized her for